Mr. President, I know you've urged people to move on, but I'm curious, why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled?
A man was found hanged in a federal jail cell. A woman was convicted and quietly disappeared behind bars. And hundreds of powerful figures, from Wall Street billionaires and influential politicians to Silicon Valley moguls, continue to appear in the media as if they had never crossed paths with Jeffrey Epstein. The Epstein files are not an urban legend. They are a mountain of records compiled over years of investigations, flight logs, sworn depositions, evidence seized from lavish estates, all telling the same story: a global child exploitation empire that operated for decades, aided and ignored by people so powerful that even the law itself seemed to recoil. Many who once shouted, "Save the children," now go out of their way to avoid mentioning Epstein's name. When the U.S. House of Representatives voted to block the release of the files, thanks to the very Republican lawmakers who had once sworn to stand with victims, public outrage erupted across social media. The audience is no longer just a chorus of spectators. They are citizens who feel profoundly betrayed. Because if there is nothing to hide, why is everyone so afraid? They're angry. Not confused, not curious, angry. Across comment sections, forums, and live chat feeds, viewers are expressing what mainstream media refuses to articulate: a deep sense of betrayal. They told us they'd release the names. They promised us transparency. Now it's silence. That's the recurring theme. Many say they no longer care about partisan politics. This is about trust. Left or right, red or blue, if you're protecting pedophiles, you're the enemy. For them, the Epstein case is not just about one man's crimes. It's a symbol of a decaying system. A system where elites prey, vanish into private islands, and reappear on magazine covers and at campaign fundraisers without consequence. Others ask why so many high-profile figures were never investigated, why the flight logs are still redacted, why journalists who dig too deep seem to disappear or go silent. There's a growing belief that if justice can be obstructed in a case as massive and well-documented as Epstein's, then no institution can truly be trusted. Some voices sound exhausted but determined. They're hoping we forget. That time will pass and this will become just another unsolved scandal. But we're not going anywhere. Not this time. And perhaps most chilling is the one comment that gets repeated in different ways across platforms. If this can be buried, what else have they buried? On its face, the justification sounds noble: protect the victims. But when you strip away the talking points, the logic collapses. If the goal were truly to protect survivors of abuse, the most straightforward approach would be to redact their names and identifying details, not to bury the entire record. Publishing the names of the perpetrators while shielding the victims would achieve exactly what the public expects: accountability, closure, and deterrence. Instead, lawmakers chose blanket suppression. The consequence is predictable, and perhaps intentional: a vacuum of information that fuels conspiracy theories. Because when institutions are seen hiding evidence, people don't assume virtue, they assume guilt. Epstein was not a partisan operator. His web of influence was ferociously bipartisan. Consider the documented connections. Donald Trump appears repeatedly in the flight logs, photographed with Epstein dozens of times. At least one accuser placed him at Epstein properties. Bill Clinton took at least 26 flights aboard Epstein's private jet. His staff eventually acknowledged the flights, though they claim no knowledge of criminal activity. Wall Street billionaires. Some of the biggest political donors on both sides of the aisle had close ties to Epstein, whether social, financial, or both. Foreign royalty and Hollywood executives, figures who move money, shape culture, and bankroll campaigns. What does this mean? If these files were released, the fallout would be bigger than any single scandal in recent memory. It wouldn't just implicate one party. It would decimate public trust across the entire political spectrum. Strategic calculus. For Republicans, disclosure could confirm that Trump and other conservative mega-donors were entangled. For Democrats, it could show the Clintons and prominent progressives were equally complicit or willfully blind. For the donor class behind both parties, it could bring investigations, civil suits, and international embarrassment. Bottom line, this is not a Democratic cover-up. It is not a Republican cover-up. It is a system cover-up. Because if the public saw every name, every timestamp, and every detail, it would no longer be possible to pretend these crimes were isolated or rare. It would expose the uncomfortable reality that the machinery of influence across parties and industries quietly sustains impunity for the ultra-powerful. The Streisand effect blocking the files hasn't made public outrage fade. It has done the opposite. Instead of calming speculation, it has fueled it to a fever pitch. One viral comment summed it up bluntly. If there's no file, what are they afraid of? When credible information is sealed away, conspiracy theories fill the vacuum. This refusal to release even redacted records has transformed the issue from a partisan fight into a moral crisis that no political camp can contain. The threat to Maxwell. Ghislaine. Maxwell now represents the single most dangerous liability to anyone who ever circled Epstein's orbit. She is the only living person with first-hand knowledge of every connection, flight log, cash transaction, and the names of powerful men who visited the mansions where children were trafficked. That alone is why many fear she will meet the same fate as Epstein, silenced before she can talk. This concern is no longer dismissed as wild speculation. It has become a serious mainstream topic of debate, prompting repeated calls to place Maxwell under 24/7 protective watch without delay. Why the public won't let it go? At this point, it is no longer about Democrats versus Republicans. It is about a fundamental moral question. Are we willing to accept that children were sold for the pleasure of billionaires and that the law only applies to the powerless? The outrage stems not from political tribalism, but from a profound sense of betrayal. Millions who once believed in slogans like "Save the Children" are realizing it may have all been a convenient smokescreen to protect a criminal elite. Conclusion: if the American justice system lacks the courage to release the truth, protect the key witness, and confront the political fallout, then the final question is painfully clear. Does it still deserve anyone's trust? Expanded investigation, the network, the cover-up, and the cost of silence. The hidden architecture of power. What made Jeffrey Epstein untouchable for so long wasn't just money or charm. It was his proximity to a network of global elites across finance, politics, and intelligence. Flight logs revealed not only multiple trips with Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, but also with tech billionaires, British royals, Saudi princes, and Hollywood power brokers. Some of these individuals have claimed ignorance. Others simply refuse to comment. But what binds them is not guilt by association. It's their collective silence. Why the silence matters. In any functioning democracy, silence from those in power during a child trafficking scandal is itself a red flag. It suggests complicity, fear, or both. And the American people are noticing. When Congress, particularly Republicans who built careers on slogans like "Protect Our Children," voted to block the release of Epstein-related files, it shattered public trust. Online forums, town halls, and editorial pages began asking the same question. If you have nothing to hide, why hide anything at all? A 2-decade failure of oversight. How did Epstein operate for over 20 years with so little interference? The answer appears to be institutional rot. Prosecutors in Florida gave him a sweetheart plea deal in 2008, shielding his co-conspirators and ensuring he would serve only 13 months, mostly on work release. During that time, he continued to exploit girls. The FBI, despite receiving reports as early as 2006, failed to pursue a serious federal case until public pressure became overwhelming. And the media, at least initially, chose to look away. Major outlets admitted they killed stories due to pressure from powerful figures. The intelligence connection. One of the darkest threads in the Epstein saga is the possibility that he was protected not just by rich friends, but by intelligence agencies. Multiple investigative journalists, including Whitney Webb and Julie K. Brown, have raised questions about Epstein's ties to Mossad and possibly U.S. intelligence. The theory goes like this: Epstein's island and mansions were equipped with hidden cameras. Were they used for personal gratification or to collect blackmail on the elite? Former Israeli military figures were close to Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, died under mysterious circumstances and was later revealed to be a suspected Mossad asset. These connections aren't mere speculation. They are supported by historical records and declassified documents, the corporate media's role. While independent journalists have relentlessly pursued this story, mainstream corporate media has lagged behind or actively suppressed it. ABC anchor Amy Robach was caught on a hot mic lamenting that the network spiked her Epstein story years before his 2019 arrest. The reason? Royal pressure from Buckingham Palace, reportedly to protect Prince Andrew. If journalism is the fourth estate, then its abdication in the Epstein case represents a profound institutional failure. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a betrayal of public trust. Where are the indictments? With so much damning evidence, flight logs, sworn testimonies, financial records, seized footage, why hasn't anyone else been indicted? Ghislaine Maxwell sits in prison, the lone scapegoat for a global enterprise. But this was never a one-woman operation. Survivors have consistently named others, and yet no grand jury, no RICO investigation, no public hearings. The Department of Justice has refused to answer basic questions. Is it fear of political fallout or something darker? The cost of doing nothing. The Epstein scandal has become a litmus test for America's commitment to justice. If elites can rape children, then walk red carpets and run hedge funds without consequence, then what does the law mean? To the average citizen, it means rules are only enforced downward, on the powerless, the voiceless, the expendable. This isn't just about Epstein. It's about a culture of impunity. And it won't stop with one man unless the system is forced to account for what it enabled and what it continues to protect.